should make a start. Would you like to do the intro or should Ella do the intro?
I can do a bit just to welcome, then hand to you, and then we can get into the really interesting bit.
Yes.
So welcome everybody on behalf of Di, Ella, and myself. Welcome to this last Biobridge workshop for the year. Thank you for joining us, and up front, thank our four speakers for this morning. For those of you not familiar with the Biobridge, it's actually we're into the third year of a 10-year agreement between the CMDT in New Zealand and its members and the Liverpool Innovation Precinct and its members here in Australia. So there's 12 health research organisations, academic universities that are members to the agreement, and at a high level, the purpose of the Biobridge is for connecting Australia and New Zealand together at the medtech sector, trying to foster collaborative projects, connecting people, supporting startups, advocating for the contribution medtech makes to our country's economies, and anything else you can fit in between there. So it's a pretty ambitious project or agreement. It's kindly funded by the ministry in New Zealand. Any members from the ministry there, thank you very much. And we've had been going since the end of 2020 and made some pretty good progress in making connections and even collaborative projects. And so one of the things we do is present this workshop series on different topics, including today's. From an Australian point of view, we have Professor Josephine Chow, who's from the South West Sydney Local Health District, and Professor Wenlong Cheng from Monash University, which is down in Melbourne. So thank you for me for my local speakers. And then Di, anything you want to add to that? You're on mute, Di. You win, you're the first one.
Yeah, that's the hangover of my holiday, I would say. So I have to get back to practice to using Zoom. But I was trying to say, kia ora, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop, and it's fantastic to see all of you here. Just as a bit of a background, the way we choose topics for these workshops is really through understanding what the community wants. So if there's anyone here who would like to see a topic being discussed, please send an email to either Lance, me, or Ella, and we will try and make your wish come true next year. But from the New Zealand point of view, we've got our two speakers, Damon Nin, who is from Whanau Tahi, one of our companies in New Zealand, who is really working in the Maori health sector, looking after our Whanau Ora programs, which is a community-based program to support Maori in their health and well-being. And then we have Andrew McDade, who's a professor at University of Auckland and also a serial entrepreneur. So both Damon and Andrew will be talking from a point of view of commercialized technologies. But just before we kick off, can we also please, Lance and I would like to thank Ella, who has put this workshop together, and she's a fantastic person that keeps Lance and I in check.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
Yes. So shall we kick off with?
I also just wanted to add.
Yes.
So the agreement is between Australia and New Zealand, and often we just call it the Trans-Tasman Biobridge. But Ella sent us some data the other day on registrations for this workshop, and welcome also to the people participating from the UK and through Asia and the United States. So clearly the Tasman is a much bigger piece of water than we originally thought. So welcome to those international participants as well. We'll kick off. So the first speaker we have is Professor Josephine Chow, and I'll just give you a bit of a short bio on her and a few other words. So Josephine is the Foundation Professor of the South West Sydney Nursing and Midwifery Research Alliance and the Ingham Institute for Applied Medical Research. She's also the Deputy Director of Research for the Southwest Sydney Local Health District. So for New Zealand colleagues, a bit similar to what your DHBs used to be. And she provides strategic direction for research of the organisations internal to that. She held the Director of Strategy and Partnerships for the LHD for over 10 years. She's an honorary professor at the University of New South Wales, Western Sydney University, and the University of Sydney. What's not in her bio there is I know that during the COVID pandemic, Josephine had a significant lead role for this health district's COVID response, including technology deployment for the purpose of maintaining the high quality health services to the community in their homes. And I'm very happy to announce that just last night, New South Wales Health, so that's all the public health system across New South Wales, announced Josephine as the 2023 New South Wales Health Staff Member of the Year. So we have the pleasure of getting Josephine fresh off her award podium. So yeah, thanks, Josephine. Hand over to you and your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just checking. You hear me all right?
Yep.
And then you see the one slide?
Can see it, yes.
Yeah, perfect. All right, okay. I'll get it right because didn't finish the event late last night, didn't expect that. So I just make sure I'm on the right track. So first is thank you, Lance and Diane and Ella, the invitation. And definitely we're really obligated to share anything I can have around this area, particularly my involvement from the beginning of the Liverpool Innovation Precinct, etc., etc. And in fact, the award last night was acknowledging not me, it's actually the team effort and all the partnership with how we achieve in health as well. Otherwise, we will not get there. So ignore me if you see the message coming through, like congratulations, been pretty overwhelming with the phone message and email message about that. So ignore that if they come in as well. I just want to spend the next 10 minutes briefly share with you about the New South Wales Health Virtual Care Strategies, and particularly giving a couple of use case that I have experienced with for the last couple of years, and my version of the importance of collaboration. And then hopefully I got time to have answer a few questions if you got any. So the virtual care in New South Wales or in Australia or even globally, we're talking about try to link into care for the patient. That means the patient doesn't need to travel, doesn't need to park the car, and it's no waiting time, and it's no expensive. I don't know whether you've been the New Zealander that you actually been to Australia. Again, it's similar to New Zealand. We got less population, lot density in some of the region that is a bit further to travel before they can actually see a human being, for example. So in New South Wales, we put a strategy for virtual care, and the timing for that is about 2021. You most well work out why 2021, but no earlier than that, even though we talk about that. The pandemic is definitely an enabler to enable us to do work quickly and faster. So in the definition in the virtual care strategy, it's really just linking people, offering them health and care through the teleconsultation or telehealth mode, and from a health professional and deliver care. So the simple, saved and quality care using a different form. They're not meant to replace the face-to-face consultation. They should be complementary to that. So the virtual care strategy from 21 to 2026, and I'm pretty sure in between will somebody look at and revising it as well, is really talking about have to be a person center, have to be actually a safe, high quality. And I put down there to reduce travel time and cost, and I put it down twice. So that's the main objective of that. Closer to people's home, or some people actually getting an ultrasound for their 3-month-old pregnancy, they have to travel 300K to get an ultrasound or consultation. So those are the ones that we actually try to enabling that they can actually do a true telehealth and collect people into the loved ones through the telehealth as well if they have to stay in the hospital in the metro area. So initial thinking for last 20 whatever years is thinking about people living in the regional area. Now it's different. The pandemic really giving us a good opportunity. It doesn't mean that we want pandemic, all right? Don't mention bushfire, please. We get ready for that. Hopefully we're not terrible this year. Pandemic is not just COVID. The flood coming in and back and in and back. And the COVID is one of those, but the normal flu is another major reason that we make sure people actually keeps all those good practice, hand wash, hand sanitizer, mask on when they got flu. So, but with that, it's actually accelerate our process and our mode of care quickly within the pandemic. During the pandemic, we can pop up something within 4 days, all right, which I'm going to share you some really good example. So the SIP pilot is a partnership between Samsung South Korea back before the pandemic in 2015-16, when the CEO actually touched base with us and we said that we can actually using their first device, haven't been got TGA approval in Australia, we can actually do a really quick feasibility study, do a direct comparison with their device for a ECG electrocardiogram monitoring for stroke patient in the hospital. So we took 1 month to do the protocol, 1 month to recruit, and 1 month to finish the report. And Samsung South Korea managed to get the TGA approval on the 4th month. So this is really a really fast track for a partner, global partner like that. And the publication there as well, telling you how we actually do the study. Then during the first phase of the pandemic, Australia locked down the country really quickly, but we managed to do the first device called the Biofirmus Avalon armband. I call it armband. They the one detecting all the temperature and pulse and some other oxygen pulse, oxygen saturation in the home. So the patient put this armband and everything go to the app. And as a researcher and clinician, what we can actually do, we can actually monitor those patients, all right, 24/7 whenever they would armband, and we escalate ambulance to take them to hospital if they need to, or escalate accordingly. So that's really the first contact of utilizing technology and doing the home monitoring for during the pandemic. So we haven't got really enough cases at the time, which is a good thing, but this has been attract lots of attention by the media at the time. So we got the news, interview, and patient, and etc. So what we try to actually work out with our partner is actually co-design hospital in the home for better home outcomes at the scale. So not just introducing a technology, love to work with startup, but then we need to find an avenue to actually make sure they've been tested and quality and safety as well. I don't need to talk to you about health challenges everywhere, about too many patients in the hospital, too many chronic care disease, too many people in the emergency department, and too many mental health, and they're getting into all ages. So by co-designing with our partner, hopefully we got a living lab to test those models, and then work with global partner, university, and research institute. We should test the model before we roll out. This is what the ideal, but it doesn't work when you got pandemic. When we roll out the technology, utilizing our partnership in 2016 to roll out this long COVID study, which we published, and identified that patient got admitted during the COVID time when they got COVID, and then we follow them through with the ECG monitoring, and then we found out that 43% of the patients have undetected cardiac changes, we call arrhythmia, atrial arrhythmia, and then they actually need to refer to follow-up for GP follow-up and cardiology. It's an early pickup, early prevention, early identification. So we're doing another study called the PAMO study at the moment, recruiting 1,000 patients, and those patients never admitted to the hospital. We call them the low-risk patient. During the pandemic, the COVID cases, we actually expecting the same pickup at the moment. Pretty scary. So it's other technology we also introduced in the past 10 years about telemonitoring. Monitor patient with heart failure, cardiac events, COPD with respiratory diabetes with the monitoring. And then we understanding how the GP roll those out, etc. And we also actually doing something called Curious Thing, which is a Australian-based company. It's a conversation agent. And the Curious Thing using artificial intelligence conversation agent, and then they actually introduced really simple question that we designed and then escalation process. Sending a patient a test, simple test, and say the Curious Thing I call Sam for the COVID time, will be giving you a call shortly. Then they will give a call to those people we identify are the low or medium risk. All right. This is an example on the 15th of September 2021. We have on the day 4,500 calls need to be made or follow up to patients in the community. The Curious Thing managed to screen the 2,596 patient low and moderate risk for the Curious Thing, the robot, to rank them from day 2 to day 10. No human call. And then we only escalate so many for urgent response. But at the end of the exercises, we have avoided human call for a large number of patients on a daily basis between day 2 to day 10 when they isolate. And only throughout the whole 4 months, we have an individual unique patient 6,323 for 4 months, and of course more afterwards, that we using this model of care, 32,000 conversation, only 4% of those need to be escalated. All right, and whatever mean. And then we save lots of human time. Roughly calculate is about 45 minutes to an hour at least for a human to talk to the patients, not because of the symptoms, because it's other reason, such as they have other things that in the household or social well-being check. But the robot only take about less than 2 minutes per call. All right, and where we set and escalate. And majority of the outcome, the people we actually get a proper evaluation, they prefer a robot rather than a human call. They feel that they've been collected and monitored by health. They feel very actually comfortable with the with this as well. Roughly within the 4 months, we saved the system or cost avoidance, if we find the staff, about $1.2 million. Whether or not we got a choice at the time, we definitely can't find any more staff to do the phone call. So with those technology, we rolled it out to other things because COVID is not existing according to lots of people's book. All right, the Queensland Health adopt how we do that with COVID. We follow up their patient, they got a bigger number, and Northern Territory. We also use the COVID, the Curious Thing methodology to follow our long COVID patients when we do the trial. And then we're using that as long clinical as well to follow up all our staff, exit from our organization very confidently and find out the information. And it's got about 51% pickup rate compared with people who don't want to talk to people from HR about how terrible they've been treated by organization or the good thing. Other than that, we're also using it for doing our graduate nurses program to look at the competency. Usually about lucky they can actually fill those survey maybe less than 10%. We're actually getting about hitting 60% of the way and only take a minute of the time on the phone. And I think it's the different generation. They found out it's easier to do and they found out it's really acceptable. So, of course, in health, we got lots of other example, but I think for the time for today, hopefully I give a bit of taste for all of you that some of the real true cases and our experience in Southwestern Sydney local health district. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Josephine. You covered a lot in a short space of time there. So we usually allocate about 5 minutes for any questions that anyone might have. If you just stick your hand up virtually or visually? Just while you're thinking one. I go, Di.
Okay, I actually have a real question, not just putting up my hand to wave at you. Josephine, the Curious Thing seems to be a fantastic program, and the rest of the pilots as well. So has it been rolled out throughout all of New South Wales, and is there opportunity to roll it out across Australia?
Yeah, so the COVID pandemic one, we thought if they keep staying, so the New South Wales are happy to pick that up. The exit interview, the people from HR already present in the first conference last week, and apparently they've been really good uptake, and people want to actually talk about how they can tap into us. The stroke follow-up stroke survivor cases, they're already a national program. We're utilizing Curious Thing.
Okay. Why
So
did
it's
you call it
adoptable?
So that's really good to hear, because a lot of pilots sometimes just sit on the shelf, right? So it's really good to see this rolled out. But why did you call it the Curious Thing?
No, Curious Thing is the company's name, called Curious Thing. So if you look
Okay.
at Google, it's Curious Thing. I call the champion we roll out for COVID pandemic during the time Sam. So it stands for Samuel or Samantha. So the one doing exit interview called Daniela
Okay.
or Danny. So
Mhm.
it's a so people won't get confused and say, I got Danny ringing me, I got Sam ringing me, all right? So they really clear about that. It's very
Okay.
personalized on the phone call.
Okay, fair. I kind of thought it was just called the Curious Thing. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
No, not my name, unfortunately.
That kind of makes me think, Joe, as well. People don't know. So the health district that Joe operates in, covered is Southwest Sydney, is very culturally diverse. Probably if not the most diverse area of Australia. So we have about 150 different languages spoken across the local government area. So for the use of that Curious Things, Joe, how were the, not knowing what language are going to be spoken in the home at the other end, how did you consider that in deploying that platform?
Yeah, so in 2021, I have absolutely got no option. So I was the lead for the operational arm for the Emergency Operations Center. We have 5,000 new cases every day for the Delta. So at the end, because I'm an op, I actually say, can we find more staff? We deploy every single one, not including myself. And then I just say, oh, I got one more idea, all right? So about Curious Thing, which I know them from the Sydney startups. When I actually go, they have a coffee, all right? And then we've been on the back end about trialing something. And I just say, yeah, we can do this. At that time, I just say, I'm brave enough to say that, but I only contact them and give them 4 days, including 2 days of the weekend, to get this up. Day 5, we trial. Day 6, we go live. So this is how it works in the pandemic. All right. So let's answer your question. No, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
We not even think about the cultural long English speaking. So that's why lots of people been excluded. All right. They may be talking to the family, but at the moment, while we actually relaxing a bit of time, so I have just sent a grant application yesterday, and we're going to run a research for the Arabic speaking patients to test this properly, the both end of the conversation and also the recipient of the conversation, to make sure that they are actually sensitive and appropriate and safe. All right. So without doing that, people can use the Google Translate, but are they safe? I can't reassure you in health.
Yep, that makes sense. And the Arabic bit makes sense as well, because we know that's the number one in terms of proportions here. So no, good. Thank you for that. Any other questions from anybody?
Yeah. Can I just ask a question? How did you cover off where the data would be stored and used and the privacy for these people? Because I assume that it's a phone call rather than any written data. Is that correct?
It's a phone call and it's a strict transcribe, like the MS Team. You can actually do the script and then every single word they type with the AI. And the company already have complied with the Privacy Act and all these rules and regulation paperwork within New South Wales Health. Yeah, so we don't, thank goodness, we don't have a problem with that, because this is the first ever pop-up for patient care. And we thought would be lots of pushback because of pandemic. We managed to navigate that as well. So the transcribe come back, you got a dashboard about how many call make. They can make 100,000 call at the same time, and then you can set up the way that they can actually do another follow-up call if you miss the call in another hour, or the patients can be ringing the 1300 number. And the privacy information is only really go back to us, and it's all can be downloaded into an Excel format that you can see every single word of the conversation.
Okay, thanks, Jo. So we do have time, a lot of time at the end for very open Q&A. So anyone who's got any questions, just hold on to them for then, and we'll move on to the next speaker, which Di will introduce.
Yeah, okay,
Damon,
thanks. Thank you. Okay, so our next speaker is Damon Nin from Whanau Tahi. Now, Whanau Tahi is a New Zealand-based social enterprise that provides a human-centered case management solution and guided by Maori principles of whanau ora, or family well-being. Damon is part of the executive team at Whanau Tahi, and he leads the design and implementation systems for iwi, which is our Maori tribes, urban Maori, and other indigenous groups internationally. So he brings culturally involved design thinking for technology, people, and practices, as well as expertise in Maori data sovereignty and governance practice. And Damon's worked with many organizations and indigenous groups, including in Australia, the States, Southeast Asia, Africa, and the UK. So Damon has been recognized for his fantastic work in the advancement of Maori enterprise, but he's also been a great supporter for the research community, and he is part of the MedTech Translator, Te Toki, the New Zealand MedTech Translator, or Te Toki Mata Ora program. He's on our board and provides us really good guidance. So Damon, over to you. Thanks.
Kia ora, thank you. Let me just make sure the screen is sharing. So hopefully you are seeing the slide. Are you seeing a slide on your screens?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So I just want to talk about a technology and some related tools around the deployment of a virtual GP and diagnostic kit. But that I have to give some context for that before I talk about it. And what we're really trying to achieve is a shift left in whānau caring for whānau. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So if we take a look at our key strategic pillars, we're really focused on these 6 areas. And in particular, and what I'm going to talk about today is how we're working to address improved community health and equity of access. And some of those other ones get involved as well, but those are the focuses for today. So if we look at the current model of what happens in New Zealand, you have whānau who, if they need support or health issue, they need to go to their GP. And the GP may or may not refer them to secondary care or other specialists. But there's a number of issues there. First of all, whānau are often whakamā. That means they're shy or reticent or unwilling to come forward to talk about an issue. And that is really driven out of a number of factors, including the fact that many of them are remote. The GP that they talk to doesn't really understand their culture and language, and it's really difficult to access the GP. I mean, even if I try to make an appointment for a GP now, it takes 2 weeks. I can't get into them unless I'm really, if I'm having a heart attack, I go to the hospital, but I don't go to the GP, which I hope I don't have. And then there's the time involved and the time of whānau to make the effort. And Josephine touched on that in her presentation as well. So those are all barriers to whānau accessing the GP. And even if they do access them, they're working with the GP who is overworked, they have constrained funding, and it's all brick and mortar clinic-based engagement. And I won't get into the secondary care stuff. So what can we change in that pattern? So what we want to do is move that support closer to the whānau and reduce the dependence on a bricks and mortar GP. And we can do that using a combination of technology, but also practice change. And what we've done in this model is saying, look, we can have a kaiarahi, which is a community worker who has some skills and knowledge, or a marae-based nurse. For those of you in Australia, by marae, we're talking about a cultural location, which is in the community where people live. And for example, we have a marae in Waiuku, which is in far south of Auckland. It's very remote, very rural, and there are no GPs in that area, so they have to make a long trip just to see a GP if they have to. That's another barrier. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, what we can do is provide a virtual GP who connects using some telehealth technologies and provide the ability for them to do really high quality diagnostics using the Seki technology that we have. And that addresses a lot of the concerns that whānau have in the engagement process. It also means that they're working with somebody that they have existing relationships with, who are local, who have knowledge and are coming from the same cultural position. So there's an immediate connection between whānau and that kaiarahi or marae nurse, the marae-based nurse. So what the technology is really doing is enabling a kaiarahi and nurse-led primary model. And that improves the access. It means that they can focus on a wellness vision rather than a deficit or sickness-based model. And that's integrated into a broader whānau tahi whānau plan, or a well-being plan that covers not just health, but other aspects of their well-being, including things like housing, family relationships, mental health, and other determinants of overall wellness. To put this into I need to share another context about this, because it's not just a technology solution. And so we can talk about other things that are happening in the marae. So they have a whai oranga program. That's a reciprocity program, and it's all about exchange of learning. So what they did in this particular model is they paired personal trainers who want to learn the language of Māori, te reo Māori. And they paired them with whānau or individuals who have either a long-term condition or multiple long-term conditions, or who are recovering from injury. And now what that does is it becomes an exchange of knowledge and skills. So while the trainer is training them and helping them to recover or to become more physically active, at the same time, the whānau member who they're working with is teaching them the language. And so there's a fair exchange going on. What that does is it enhances the mana, or the value that is placed. So they're in an equal relationship. It's not an uneven relationship, because they're both supporting each other. They pair people carefully based on their location, their level of te reo knowledge, and their health goals. And this focused quite over a 12-week period normally. So here's some illustrations of people that have successfully engaged in this way. You'll see on the bottom left that this man who was very inactive, he hadn't been used to moving at all. And so what they did is they used the poi. It's a Māori cultural thing used in kapahaka or Māori performances. And that just got him moving. And he's familiar with it. He understands it. He doesn't have to learn to use new equipment. He can do it at home. And it got him moving. And so that, but the pairings were very successful in helping people to work together with the whānau member teaching and the personal trainer teaching. And surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, there were a lot of personal trainers that wanted to learn to speak Te Reo Māori. So there were there was no limit on the number of people who wanted to participate. And so here's the first cohort that came through, and the outcomes were very successful in that. People got moving, they improved their management of their long-term conditions, and the trainers got to learn some Māori language. So that's the context. So we're talking about rural communities who are looking for more innovative ways to engage and overcome some of those traditional barriers. So I'm just going to skip away a couple of these and now talk about what we did as far as the diagnostic tools. And so there were kind of, this is like the initial kit that was provided to the community. And what they did is set this up at the marae and then made some of this equipment available to people to take home when they had certain conditions that wanted more close monitoring. There's basically 3 devices that you can see here. The first is an MTX, which measures a number of blood gases and hematology. There is a portable ECG unit, which is the equivalent of a 2 or 3 lead ECG. So it's just good enough to measure ATF, similar to the device that Josephine shared. And then there is a home smart clinic, which can be used to measure ear, throat, nose, and heart. It works as a stethoscope. It has a high definition camera for looking at skin and so forth. So this is just some illustrations of how they get used. They give high resolution imagery of there's the ear. There's an example of looking down the throat. And it doesn't require a lot of skill to operate or use. The way that the technology works is that a virtual GP who's connecting remotely can actually take control of the device and give instructions to the patient on where to hold it and how to position it. Or they may have a kaiarahi or nurse with them who can assist in doing that, depending on who they're working with. The key benefits of that model, where you have a virtual GP who's remotely dialing in through a video conference with access to that equipment, it means that you increase the equity of access. People are engaging with the GP in a more comfortable and familiar setting. They can improve the health literacy, because the other thing that we've found out is that Māori and other populations really are really highly visual learners. And when they can actually see what's in their ear or see what's down their throat, they understand a lot better what's going on, rather than some mysterious thing happening and the doctors telling them what they're seeing. And of course, that reduces the pressure on GP clinics and an aging GP population. A lot of those virtual GP sessions are done by semi-retired GPs who are working part-time or from home. Of course, for whānau, it means that their first primary care interaction is happening in their home with someone they know and trust. In many cases, one visit is enough, because they can effectively screen out those low priority issues or deal with them immediately on the spot. It means there are no challenges getting to the GP's physical premise. It reduces their booking times, and they're able to have more regular wellness check-ins to be more proactive about it. And for the practice, it means that it's better for them. It reduces stress on staff. It means that they can increase the number of people they can see, and that has financial benefits to them as well. Just to give some further support for that, just a couple of quotes from the CEO of the marae who rolled out this model first. She basically says that this created a better connection between the GP and their social service arms, so they were able to work more collaboratively. It meant that they could ease the workload and stress of their staff, and they had a whole of health solution for their whānau. The real thing that I want to point out is that bottom sentence. It's a whānau-led model of care. So those kaiarihia nurses were all related to the families that they were visiting. And it meant that they had a new way of supporting their whānau with people that they trust. So it's about whānau or families looking after themselves. That visual learning means that people can see what's going on with no filtering. And they're learning about this in their own home with their family, their children, their grandchildren running around, so it's really real. So this is the shift of care from a GP, hospital, GP, into the homes. And so that's been a really good thing, improving the care and reducing wait times as well. There's some key numbers. I won't dwell on those, but they had over 5,000 visits. This is over a 6-month period, with over 2,000 being forwarded on by the nurse to the GP for either referral or prescriptions. There are over 14 out of 20 of those patients who were being monitored got needed referral back to the hospital for those that had other conditions that were more closely monitored. Yeah, I won't get into those other details, keep the time short. They did a number of tests using that technology. 1678 of those tests were dealt at the nurse-led clinic level, and another 4,000 were referred to the GP for remote diagnostics. That's just an illustration of what it looks like, right? They're operating out of a small building. In there is they have the kit, they have a large screen TV monitor. Families can come in, it's low stress for them. They can bring the whole family in. There's room for them in there, and they can engage with the GP via that telemedicine option. We're now moving on to the next iteration, where that initial kit was provide limited diagnostics, and but there were issues with it, to be honest. So it required people to have a smartphone, because those devices connected to the smartphone and connected to the cloud from there for access for the GP. We're now rolling out this new kit, which is much more supports a much larger range of diagnostic tools. So it includes a 12-channel ECG, a tonometer, pulse oximeter, detailed blood pressure and HR, spirometry, urine analysis on the spot, blood glucose measurement, dermoscopy. You can listen to the heart and lungs, otoscopy, hematology, and ultrasound. So all of that is included in this little backpack. It includes the monitor for being able to talk with the GP and control and work with the devices. That's just some more of the equipment that's included in there. And so what these do is they provide the ability to connect to the device and view the results, store the results. So this can either be done remotely when you're not connected to a network, or it can be done online, and the results are stored and forwarded to the GP. That's an example of the ECG recordings, an ultrasound screen there. So the new kit has much more detailed options, a much wider range of options for people to engage, or for the doctor to use when it's warranted. And again, it's to further reduce the dependence on having whānau go to the clinic. So that's where I'll leave it. The results so far have been really encouraging. It really is enabling whānau to engage in a new and better way with the health system, and it shifts that whole idea of whānau caring for whānau back into the community where we think we get better outcomes. Kia ora.
Thank you, Damon. I'm always fascinated with your talk, and I can see that within the short, since June, you've moved it forward again. Okay, open for some questions. We can take about 3 questions. Yeah, hi, Henry.
How's it going?
Good.
Hi, Damon. Yeah, my name is Henry. I'm currently final year medical student, currently in Clyde, one of the rural hospitals. And I'm just wondering, for example, when the funnel is using the kit, the kit you guys are provided, things such as ultrasound or like hematology, those things, what's the experience around the funnel utilizing those equipments? Because they kind of need some skills to start utilizing them.
Yep, good question. I didn't make that
Yeah.
clear. So there were kind of two sets of equipment involved. The first ones that I showed, which were fairly simple, an otoscope and a simple ECG and a blood gas device. Those ones are easily used by people in the home. The second iteration that I talked about is a nurse-led device. So that one is not intended to be given to whānau, but it's something that a nurse or kaiarahi would take with them on a visit, or that would be done in a marae-based clinic. So that those ones are used by a practitioner who's skilled and trained and being able to use those correctly.
Okay. And a follow-up question is like, is there any sort of like training for the whānau or for people within the community to sort of like learn how to early recognize and detect conditions such as stroke or myocardial infarction and things like that? Like, is there like a training components to it?
So that sort of stuff has been happening as a natural result of getting better engagement with whānau. And what happens is that when the nurse or kaiarahi are talking with whānau in the home and bringing out these devices, they can explain to them, like, for example, if I'm going to put an ECG onto you and you can see on the screen the heart rate patterns, then you can talk about it. And we've found that whānau find that far more engaging when they can actually see their body on the screen and it means something to them. So now it's sort of taking that veil of mystery away, lifting the veil and letting people see and engage directly with their practitioner on what's happening. And that means you can have better conversations about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Any other questions? If not, can I ask this question? So is the first kit available for anyone to use now, Damon?
Yes, it is. In fact, both of those kits are available now.
Okay, and so I think that this is something that everyone needs in their home. Having teleconferencing with my GP just recently and not being able to show him that I had a very sore throat. So I need to come talk to you. But I think that this could be something that I know that Eileen and Mary, sorry to put you on the spot, but I know that John was interested in looking at technologies for the community, and this could be something that if we should ensure that John is connected to Damon on.
Yep, for sure. Send through.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
I was also wondering if there was anything in there, Josephine, that might be of use for looking ahead, broader group. This delivery of health service is not going to go away. It's only become more sophisticated in use and elegant. So whether there's something in there that's of use to you, then that might be good to connect to Damien as well.
I noticed that there's Anu has put up a hand, but perhaps we can, Anu, if you don't mind, can we just park that question until the panel Q&A? Cool. Don't go away with your question though. All right, so Lance, handing it back to you and to Australia.
Yep, thanks, Di. So yeah, our second presenter from Australia is Professor Wenlong Cheng. So Wenlong is a professor and director of research in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering at Monash University, and currently NHMRC Investigator Leadership Fellow and Fellow of the Royal Society, an ambassador in Melbourne Centre for Nanofabrication. He has previously been the Alexander von Humboldt Fellow in the Max Planck Institute of Microstructure Physics. He founded the Monash Nanobionics Lab, which I didn't know, at the Monash University in 2010, and he's published over 200 papers. Currently, also the scientific editor for publication of the Royal Society of Chemistry, Nanoscale Horizon, and he said to me a few journals, but looking at how many that I would just say numerous. I don't know where you get time for it all, Wenlong. But yeah, happy to hand to you. And really, a presentation went along on kind of general areas of monitoring that his technologies cover. So yeah, over to you, Wenlong.
All right, thanks for the nice introduction and invitation. Hi everyone. I'm talk, I think, perhaps more focused on the technical aspect because I'm kind of researcher and translational research, and to some degree, maybe a little bit entrepreneurship. To declare conflict interest, I'm also the founder for Soft Science Pty Ltd in Melbourne. So what's the problem? I think Josephine and Damon already set the scene about the need of connected healthcare technology or virtual care technology to be prepared for the future, and particularly in Australia and New Zealand context. We have a lot of rural area. We have the aging society, and this increased the disease burden and mortality across, indeed, in other age span as well. And the COVID certainly boosts the need of the telehealth solution, in which a lot of telehealth doesn't really provide really the solution, as Diana mentioned. And also the basically in short, the current healthcare in my world should be largely hospital clinic centered, even though that's techniques too at home, but it's not really in reality to really deliver the connected healthcare that we aim to achieve. Currently, there's a lot of wearable products in the market, but mainly they are consumer grade, not related to the medical grade yet. So therefore, we really need a solution of diagnostic tools that offer closed loop feedback anytime, anywhere, not just on demand, and ideally continuous non-invasively monitor health. And that's basically the goal. So in this context, we believe the connected healthcare become increasingly important and demanding. By definition, it encompasses the device and technology and systems to enable the quality care to be delivered at a distance through virtual care technology, including medical AI, remote monitoring, point of care devices, and smart wearable or even nearable technology with data integration along with telehealth. So it's a system that comprises of the hardware and the backend machine learning data algorithm, and then to offer the closed loop real-time response. So that's what we define as a connected technology. Is this easy? My answer is not. We see that currently people talk about Internet of Things. The goal is trying to connect everything, but the current technology in the end, because of the electronic circuit board technology, you can keep things connected anytime, anywhere, like computer, cars, or iPhone, or airplane, or factory. But we're not really able to connect to the biological systems, such as healthcare and water, agriculture, environment. So those systems is not really stay connected to the state of art internet, even though there's 5G, protected the 6G, but the connection to human or biological systems, even tissue or cell or organ level, the sensor part is missing. So why is that? Because human, if we understand our biological system, is kind of soft, elastic, and three-dimensional system. But electronics is a smartphone or computer, a primer and reading system. So they're not compatible. You can make a attachable and portable, but cannot really true wearable. So therefore, in this case, if you want to make a true difference, we believe material innovation is the key. So our design principles, we need to start from material innovation and to design a soft, thinner, and cheaper, even two wearable sensors, ideal like a tattoo, like a soft wearable bandage, like electronic skin, or even textile. So that they really sort of offer the solution to be integrated with human textile or even human skin. And then we research on the sensors. We research on the sensor connected to the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or NB-IoT, and those required the AI ML technology, and we collaborate with people and you work on those data scientists. And then once you have those prototype of systems, we need to test in the clinical setting, and we need to collect the data, in many cases time-lapsed real-time data, and then we need to understand those data, interpret what is medical means, and then allow us to for the decision making. So it's a full loop of the wearable research platform from scratch innovation of materials all the way to the system has a soft component, which is software, and it also has a ready component. Well, it's not really entirely ready because we're trying to make a soft wearable devices. So in this case, we're proud to have this innovative, what we call a gold electronic skin technology, granted the US patent, Australian patent already. So we are sort of renowned lab in the gold nanowire and the nanomaterials trying to make electronic skin research. On the bottom left is sort of black ink. It sounds like black, but actually it's made of gold, has an ultra thin gold thread suspended in the solution and form like a solution. And then you can print in the different surfaces. We also has another universal gold coating technology. And these days people use gold for jewelry, reserve bank, and only about 20% use in the technology space. About 20% of this technology space go to mainly electronics. And in this electronic application for gold, like smartphone contain about 50 milligram gold, and that's in the market share already 500 million. So the gold in the technology is a really small piece of pie. So in this case, in terms of coating, with the other very powerful uniform coating, we can coat any surfaces from elastomer, from even the human hair and the face line, and you can have wearable skin attached to the skin with a good contact. And then we can manufacture a tattoo transfer on the skin as well. So in this case, our vision is pretty clear. We would like to enable what we called from wearable 1.0 to wearable 2.0. So the current products like smart glasses, smart band, and they are rigid and somewhat burdensome. And one big problem, as I illustrated earlier, because of rigidity, when you move, it will cause dislocation, will cause motion artifact, cause contact resistance. Therefore, the data collected typically is not accurate. And those are the killer problem for the wearable devices to really reach the medical grade. So we believe the future wearable should be ideally invisible, imperceptible, and can be integrated with skin and with the textile so that your health be monitored, but you don't feel they are present. So therefore, we really need to make the wearable to be soft and comfy and imperceptible. So that's the wearable 2.0 that we hope to achieve. So we have an exploration of gold nanowires. We also have other materials like iron liquid, which is liquid that's transparent but conductive. We also research like copper nanowires and even the nanocrystals and try to make those wearable sensors. We have some clinical study. So the sensor we're making in the lab can measure multiple parameters from physiological like electrocardiogram and APS cardiogram, which is complementary to electrocardiogram, and a physical parameter from human, from many different pressure strains related to like artery pulse, voice recognition, feature kicks, and muscle stretching, movement, back pain, and so on. And we're also able to measure biological marker from the human sweat, such as glucolactic pH and cationic ice and so on. And those can be extended to many other biological markers, over 100 potentially, even though we have time to explore, like vitamin level, cortisol, and so on. So I have just, because of time limitation, I just two snapshots. One is on the fundamental research. We just published this in Nature Nanotechnology, which is highest impact journal in the nanotechnology space. We published this year on the wearable skin, which is the artificial intelligence powered wearable skin. We believe it's a bridge between human, which is a natural intelligence system. We can think, we can do things, but these days the computer become more and more advanced. They also can think. And become ChatGPT is essentially a smart system that already can communicate with human by voice, and so. But the bridge between them is like we have to monitor the human health. Then we need something to be impossible. I think the wearable skin perhaps it work as a bridge between those natural intelligence and artificial intelligence systems, so that can stay the healthcare can stay connected to internet all the time. So in this paper, we demonstrate a proof concept, a wearable sensor on the source area, because source area related to a lot of vitals and the respiration rate and heart rate and your speaking and respiration and so on. So we have one single sensor. We can have very complex signals. We could use machine learning to disentangle the signal and classify with number of different vitals size of human. We're also working in the translation research. I founded a startup company called Soft Science. So we developed a software cardiac patch, which is smart patch. It's really lightweight, only about 3 grams. It has a MCU and Bluetooth, all and battery rechargeable, everything integrated as a prototype. It can offer the continued non-invasive solution and 24/7, and is also rechargeable. So our research is sort of is a multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, if you like, and we have fundamental materials, academic papers. We do translation or do the prototype and testing at hospital. We also were keen to collaborate with the industry and even the investors, which is pretty important to really able to translate. And the Monash Institute of Medical Engineer has been, helping us. We also collaborate with many different people from other faculties and design, art, and medicine, and nursing, health sciences, and engineer, and FIT. So we trying to really establish a stakeholder ecosystems comprised of tech, health, and users, government, and academic. So the government provide fundings, and user will be as a user feedback. And then, of course, this ecosystem also need venture capital and other collaboration as well. I think with this, that's all I would like to say, and I'm happy to answer the question you have. Thank you.
Many thanks, Wenlong. My head's spinning there. There's at least 3 people I think I would need to connect you to. One, Di and I both know, who's developing that's a next generation space suit, but part of that suit is a sensor suit, pretty much as you described, for monitoring a whole bunch of human performance.
That would be great, yeah.
Measures.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be a great person to connect you to. I think he has an agreement with ABI already to develop some things there. So many things they can be used for. You don't have to name them, but has industry shown any interest in what you're doing there? Because there's some really basic things I can think of that would solve some existing.
That's a good question. We do have some connection industry, but we did not really reach out, talk to many more. And if you have those connections, really appreciate, we can collaborate or do something together. Particular, on the scaling and the commercialization part of the equation. So in terms of R&D and some prototype, and we have gone through a lot of iteration to improve the product and to do the technical de-risk, to improve TRL level. But the commercial part of the equation somewhat we are not that strong yet. We
like
collaborate to join and partner and work together. And also the end user part, we also would like to scale that as well.
Sure. Is the conductive capability of your paint equivalent to gold? Or is it
Yeah, we have a portfolio of 3 IPs, and one of them has been granted. Other 2 is in the process of national phase and PCT stage. And those are all about gold nanowires, which is we specialize and we're strong in that space.
Yes, I've got an idea to talk to you about. So I just got that off, came out straight away. Questions from anybody else? I can't see if you want to take your slide down when I can't see any. If there is anyone, just yell out.
Wenlong, have you thought of using this technology for detecting epileptic fits so that you can actually, warn caregivers?
Yeah, that's a good question. We now undertook the clinical study using the smart bandage device for monitoring try to correlate with the seizure event. We are doing this at the moment.
Okay.
We hope to reach the positive outcome, but we have done a lot of work, especially during COVID with recruit and with the global IC shortage. We have some challenges, but now we are back. So we work on this at the moment.
Okay, I was just curious because I just come back from the MedTech conference in Anaheim, more a US-based conference, and there were quite a few, discussions and startups around the epileptic area. And there's one that I think I'll send you a link later on.
Yeah.
You might just wish to look at it.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that an American one or an Australian one, Di? Because there is one
American one.
So there's one in Victoria called SEER Medical, SEER. We're also working in that space for specifically what you're asking about, Di, that predictive ability.
Yeah.
Improve the way sufferers can live their life. So, but yeah, they're in Victoria.
Okay. No, this is an American one.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Any questions? If not, then we'll just move on to the final speaker before we open up for open Q&A. But yeah, if you think of any questions along the way, you can save them up for then anyway. So back to you, Di.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Lance, and thanks, Wenlong. So now I have the great pleasure to introduce Andrew McDade, whom, as I said, is a serial entrepreneur and a really good mechatronic engineer as well. So Andrew founded Open Technologies probably about 5-10 years ago, 6 years ago. And Open is a medical device and data company which is focused on delivering knee health analytics to patients and the orthopedic market using AI powered wearable and a remote patient monitoring platform. Orthopedics is, of course, a very topical area, not just in New Zealand and Australia, but over at the the MedTech conference, orthopedics was just a big session all on its own. So so Andrew is definitely in the right place. So over to you, Andrew, and looking forward to hearing about the Open story.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Di, and also Lance and Ella for organising the session today and for the invitation. I think it's a really great initiative, this Biobridge, to really encourage the collaboration. I think everyone here would agree that, by its very nature, medtech, whether it's development, translation, commercialization, is obviously very multidisciplinary by nature. So, just really happy to be part of this group and be sharing my experiences. I'm lucky I've got the pressure, I guess, of speaking last after 3 really great topics. So hopefully I can share some insights based on my experience through the journey with Open today. So my background really started off in the academic research space. I'm an engineer focused around medical devices, robotics, wearables, machine learning, AI. Founded the company Opum in 2016 and was also CEO and have built that company, and also involved in a number of other companies as well along that journey, from advising and helping out. So again, like everyone else here, very keen to talk with other folks who are in this sort of area, and maybe I could help them as well along their journey too. So today, really the focus of my talk is on this digital knee technology, which, as Di said, is an orthopedic remote monitoring solution and data platform. It's a little bit different, I guess, from the previous talks in that it's quite focused on specialty care versus primary care. It's a sensor technology developed, you can see in the top right here, a sensor that clips onto existing knee braces. So our sort of philosophy and strategy was to say, well, people really don't like wearing wearable products. We know that as a company. So let's develop a technology that fits onto something that's already a therapeutic device, because we think we can get some good adherence and some good outcomes. So that's really what we did. We've built the business. We've taken this through FDA approval. We've got reimbursement in the US. We've done clinical trials, and we have customers, recurring revenue in the US, and actually we just sold the business about 2 months ago. So it's been a sort of successful end-to-end journey. And today my focus on this talk really is in two parts. So the first one, just outlining the product, so the problem solution product part of the business, and then in the second part, I'm going to go through a recent clinical trial that we did as well, because I think often with digital technologies, what we see in the industry is there are companies putting technologies out that haven't really been very well validated, and when it comes to actually measuring those outcomes, they're often not as good as what has been proposed. So I think that's a really important aspect. So as I say, the problem that we're really tackling is that, again, ties back to this hospital at home, getting data outside the clinic. So in orthopedics, there's a real lack of visibility and support for knee conditions outside the clinic. And this is a really large problem with, growing obesity in countries. Knee replacements are due to double in the next sort of 10 years. So a really large problem. Also in orthopedics, a challenge is that you've got these specialists who have such long wait lists, very small in-clinic time for in-clinic consultations, and the care is also very fragmented. So you've got orthopedic surgeons, you've also got physical therapists. In the US, you've got athletic trainers, coaches as well. So patients are sort of stuck between quite a few different specialties, and as I say, it's quite fragmented. So what that leads to is really the care and the care pathways are really suboptimal. There's lots of sort of over-servicing, unnecessarily clinic consultations, people ringing back to the office that didn't understand things. And so that really leads to poor outcomes, especially for high-risk patients. And just generally, as in lots of areas of healthcare, we know that there's really low patient adherence and engagement as well. So what we're looking at doing is saying, well, how can we essentially digitize that orthopedic evaluation? So looking at history, medical history, examination, and then everyday life. And we see that fitting in a number of different places, and helping out from primary care consults through to, second opinion, specialist consults, follow-ups, and pre and post-surgical as well. So what we also learned as well is, on top of the technology, and it's been a theme today as well, is that it's not just the technology, right? It's also the care pathways and the workflows that are really important. And so our focus was in the US market. And what we realized very quickly was that we built a sensor solution. As we built that sensor solution in the US market, they'd released reimbursement codes, which is how care gets paid for in the US for remote monitoring. But what those codes include and mandate is actually human monitoring time. And so we spent a lot of time working with clinics and figuring out how we could integrate this. But what we landed on was actually coming to the conclusion that we as a company had to provide those services. So we actually turned from being a technology company into this sort of full service remote monitoring solution where we provided a sort of bundle of technology plus the monitoring staff, plus helping with these clinics billing for the services we were providing as well. And so that's really what we became as Open. We started rolling that out into a number of big clinics. I'm not going to spend too long on the technology itself, but really just to say that we were providing, we had the sensor that clipped onto a number of different knee braces, from soft sleeves to more rigid braces. We had a patient-facing app, so there was Bluetooth to the phone that gave the patient their care program. Those insights also went back to the clinician, went back to our monitoring staff. And then we sort of, at the top right there, you can see a number of different sort of specialist measurements that we could collect. So from simple things for like steps all the way up to more sophisticated biomechanical algorithms as well. And I guess one of the insights we learned from this as well was, coming from the research environment, our initial thinking was that all of these great fancy, whiz-bang metrics were going to be great and everyone was going to love them, right? And what you find is the surgeons don't want to learn, aren't able to learn this stuff. They're not biomechanics experts like we are in research domain. So that was a big challenge. You've also got other challenges like, the sales reps, for example. So getting sales reps who are the ones that actually take the technology and distribute the technology, they're not biomechanical experts as well. So moving into more specialist care, there are some challenges with the sort of the level of sophistication around some of this technology as well. So some really interesting findings as we rolled this out. So that's really the overview of the problem solution side of things. I'm going to run through, this was a recent study we did. I want to just run through it pretty quickly and not go into too much detail, but basically it was a randomized control trial, really the first of its kind, and won an award at a recent conference in the US in the orthotics and prosthetics domain. It was run out of the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is actually the top rehab hospital in the US, and Northwestern University, in collaboration with University of Auckland. Opum and Tuan is the knee brace company as well that supported this. So really the background for the study was saying that knee bracing for arthritis is an effective non-surgical treatment. What it does, it actually mechanically unloads the knee to reduce pain. However, we know that these braces have really poor compliance. But on the other side, we also know that wearables and apps have the ability to potentially increase patient engagement as well. So the objective of the study was to see how we could improve the efficacy of these knee braces by adding some sensor technology and improve patients' pain and function. So this was a 12-week randomized control trial. We had participants were aged between 40 to 75. So typically this is an older patient demographic, which again was important with the design of the app. We had two groups, a brace-only group and then a brace plus the sensor group. And all participants also received a self-guided PT program, with the sensor group getting that on their phone. So that was really the design. We did pre-post measurements at 12 weeks, intervention, both patient-reported outcomes, and also we did objective physical assessments as well, so walk tests and functional tests like stair navigation and sit to stands. And then we had exit surveys as well. So the results were, we recruited 60 participants, which in this domain with a prospective intervention study is actually quite a significant number. And yeah, so 30 in each group. Just some baseline demographics there, but I won't go into too much detail. And this here is sort of the study design and randomization. But I guess the first insight there was that we found that in the brace plus sensor group, we had close to 90% retention rate over 12 weeks, which was really a lot higher actually than the physician at the US expected and what we expected as a company as well. So that was that was quite promising. In terms of patient-reported outcomes, so across different subscales, so pain, symptoms, quality of life, the brace plus sensor group had clinically significant improvements across all of those subscales, where there was only non-significant improvement in some of those for the brace group. In terms of 6-minute walk test, again, I'm just going to run through these pretty quickly, but the brace plus sensor group had significantly improved outcomes versus the brace only group. Same in the 10-meter walk test. Functional test, 5 times sit to stand, which is a measure of strength and stability and fall risk. Both groups increased, but the sensor group increased more. Same as stair ascending and descending as well. One of the surprising outcomes we saw was weight loss. We weren't really planning on this, but we hypothesized that this was really because we were reducing pain by doing this intervention and having a really good exercise program, that actually people were more active and fit in everyday life as well, which was, for an arthritis patient, is really important, because obviously weight affects how much pain and load is going through the knee. And then finally, on patient-reported outcome, in terms of health economics, this was really impactful as well. So we showed that 2 out of 3 patients in the sensor group were less likely to undergo a total knee replacement than before the intervention. And in terms of utilization, again, a really high percentage, close to 90% of the sensor participants would continue to wear that brace plus the 12-week intervention. So the conclusion of the study really was that both groups had improvements, which is, I think, a lesson to say that when we're talking about hospital at home and these sort of new remote technologies, the remote technology is often not an intervention in itself. It's the traditional intervention is actually an effective therapy, but you can actually add, significant benefit by adding sensor technology and making it more accessible, which also makes patients more accountable and improves intention rates as well. So we found this to be, really encouraging, and especially for, not just because it's a chronic condition, but also because there's a lot of communities in the US, in Australia and New Zealand, as we've heard, that have limited access to healthcare as well. And these are really debilitating diseases that lead to, follow on, other issues as well. And I guess, commercially, we also saw that this study was really effective in terms of actually encouraging adoption from surgeons as well. So this was sort of like sort of baseline must-have that we needed to sort of tick that box of having good quality clinical evidence. So that was good to reinforce as well. So I think I'll just stop there and pass it back to Di.
Thank you, Andrew. It's really good to see your journey, because I kind of dip in and out, and as we talk over coffee, you tell me things. So and also congrats on the exit of Open, and I'm sure you're off to doing something new again. We'll take a couple of questions for Andrew specifically, and then open it up for the rest of the panel as well. So do we have any questions? Karthika, you got your hand up.
Kia ora. Hi, everyone. This is Karthika from University of Otago. I really enjoyed the talk, so thank you very much. Andrew, my question is about your FDA journey, and I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that, and also sort of how long did it take you?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we were quite fortunate in that our device fell under a low risk category, so it was a class 1 device. We marketed it. So with FDA, it really comes down to what your claims are, and so really we were marketing the device as a digital goniometer, and so goniometers already exist, and so what we were saying is we just put in a measuring device on top of a knee brace, and that's how we sort of managed to keep that low risk device, which meant that the process was actually relatively straightforward compared to potentially class 2, class 3. We still have to have good manufacturing processes and controls, so still have to have a quality management system, still have to have certification, as well as obviously HIPAA and all the data security side of things as well. So there was still quite a procedure to go down, but we didn't have to have the very long waits for 510K. We didn't also have to do the clinical trial to get FDA. The clinical trial was more as a validation of the efficacy of the device and to help market the device rather than actually to get that regulatory approval. But I'd say it's still quite a process. It probably took us at least 6+ months to get all the paperwork involved and to have that all filed and everything. Yeah. And then also it's an ongoing thing as well, right? And so you don't just do it once. You have to new versions of the software, new versions of the hardware. You have to keep those things up to date. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Happy to have give you more insight offline as well. If you're
I just wondered, I might reach out to you separately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. That's a good connection there. Okay, any other questions?
One for me, basic one, just trying to gather my understandings. Andrew, so when you say, better outcomes, part of it is the increased accountability. So I suspect the actual wearer themselves get data back that they can see in addition to the remote monitoring by a professional. So is that the fact that the wearer themselves can get quantitative data themselves, is part of that is just that they have that feedback, motivated, a bit like the way a diabetic patient can see their own glucose levels and modify their behavior according to that. Is that part of it as well?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think it's really sort of, before you do these things, you can conceptually think of and sort of hypothesize how patients will react and everything. But when you actually get in there and you see, coming from an engineering background, you see all these different diversity of patients. It's really not horses for courses, right? So some patients, as you say, are really self-motivated once they see the app, right? We've had patients that have been on for, close to a year post-knee replacement when the typical rehab is only 3 months, just because they're so engaged and they really want to see the data and everything. But on the other side, we have quite a number of patients who never even log on to the system. They get given it to the surgeon, they go home and you ring them and text them and everything, and they're just not going to do it, right? And again, it comes down to the demographics. With an OA patient, they're typically depending on which state in the US as well, the Midwest states, they're often overweight, maybe they don't have smartphones, some of those challenges as well. They're not that inherently engaged, and in some places in the US, they're also suspicious as well when you talk about remote monitoring. So there's just so many different demographics of patients that you encounter. And so when you're designing these technologies, I think it's really not a one size fits all, right? It's a big challenge to try and have some sort of encouragement, some sort of engagement that may fit with each type of patients. But I think as well, we have to realize that these sort of technologies aren't going to be a fit for everyone as well.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's really fair comment. Okay, shall we open up to the panel? I'll just come back to Henry, because he had a question just now for Josephine. Do you want me to go to Anu first and come back to you later? Oh, no.
I didn't have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't have a question. So
you do? Yeah, okay.
I didn't.
You didn't? Okay, so sorry, because I thought you had your hand up. My apologies.
Nah, there was a B.
Okay, we can't
I was
have
in a
you being
rural area
stuck.
right now.
No worries. Okay, Anu, you had a question for Damon?
Kia ora koutou from Wanaka. and sort of Otipoti, which is Dunedin. Damon, great to hear your talk. I am a rural hospital medicine specialist on the South Island and wondering if your services are down here. So if you're across the Motu, and also if you're linked in with the Rural Hospital Medicine training program and the folks up in Rawene.
So we don't have a big presence in the South Island, but it certainly is available, and I'd be happy to talk with you about doing something down there with you if you were interested.
Okay.
With Rawene, no, that's not one of our first pilot areas that we're working with at the moment.
Sounds like there's lots of opportunity out there.
Yeah,
I think the Rural Hospital Medicine folks would be delighted to know about what you're up to, because we're always looking for ways to connect digitally with our colleagues.
Yeah, well, look, we'd be happy to talk more about that.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Sounds like Damon's got to go to Wanaka soon. Or Anu could come to Auckland, but maybe Wanaka sounds better.
I was just in Auckland, actually.
Oh, there you go.
So we just missed the opportunity. So,
well, are you coming to HINS? We could catch up there, perhaps.
I am not booked into that, but maybe I need to. We'll find a way.
Okay, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Cheers.
All right. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question? Oh no, Abbas.
Sorry.
No, you deserve
Okay.
it, Abbas, because you've been putting all
Yeah.
the links up for everyone.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you,
appreciate
Abbas.
it. Yeah, no
He's
worries.
been really busy helping all of us.
Yeah, kia ora, everybody. Thanks for the info in the chat. Super insightful. My question was around whether, I mean, there's been mentions through Andrew around some of the patient-reported outcomes, and whether there was any plans for some economic evaluations of these, super interesting interventions being implemented. So, is there any plans for an economic evaluation? Is there plans for one? Is that something that you guys are looking into? Any comments across the board?
I guess maybe I can just kick off by saying I think that it's a really important piece of the puzzle that again is quite overlooked, as well as this economic evaluation. I think what we saw from COVID and post-COVID sort of investment, I guess, is there's in these digital health technologies, there's been such a boost, and now in adoption and number of companies, and now it's really, I think, rubber's hitting the road with the payers, right? And the payers are now wanting to know actually how does this stuff translate, even from clinical studies, right? Like in a controlled clinical study that you may get good results, how does that actually pragmatically translate to cost savings for those payers? So yeah, I guess in terms of our research, there's nothing really short term for us that we're looking at, but I would just advocate that I think it's a really important area that folks should look at when developing these technologies.
And along that same lines to Damon, so what you're doing is addressing that really fundamental challenge of access, and how the access is difficult because of distance. But I was just thinking, because of the family-centric, whānau-centric approach that you've taken, it might be hard because you don't have a control, but do you have any data or way of collecting data on potentially improved outcomes because it is family-centric, and any cultural issues are addressed inherently in that program?
Look, I can comment on that if that's all right. So at Whānau Tahi, one of the things we do is we do have an outcome measurement system that goes alongside the stuff that I shared with you today. That's a whole nother topic in its own right. But there are a number of outcome measures that are captured, and those are primarily driven by what whānau or families decide is important to them. And so typically those outcome measures are driven by the whānau. And then we have a number of tools that are available to help collect the data that will support that outcome measure. And so there's a whole system around of measurement that supports that, and then the ability to analyze that data So that's part of the whānau platform that's delivered alongside the technology.
I guess I was thinking, is that the family determined, in comparing the outcomes to whatever the current standard of care that people would be forced to follow. As I said, it's a bit hard if you don't have a control to compare that to, whether you could say, no, your approach does deliver better outcomes than if they were to be made to travel or go through the classic system. So I'm not sure there'd be an easy way to compare those.
I mean, a couple of
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a couple of things that handle that situation, because what we do is we have a system of mapping from whānau outcomes to standardized outcomes.
Oh, right.
When it comes to the data collection, it's really important that it's couched and phrased in language that the family can relate to. Otherwise, they tend to disengage and they say, well, why do I want to answer those questions? Because it's nothing to do with me. And you get families get tired of being asked, and especially this has been the experience in Māori culture, is that they're overanalyzed and they get tired of being asked to respond to this survey and that survey, because everyone's trying to find out how mad, bad, and sad they are. So it's important, and we've learned this the hard way, if you like, the importance to put the outcome and measurement in language that they can relate to. And then behind the scenes, we have a process of mapping that to some standardized outcomes for the purpose of doing that analysis.
I mean, one thing I was going to add was, we, in terms of a control group, I think we kind of know what happens to rural communities or communities that are isolated or don't engage with the health system to the same extent that, those that are not, don't have geographical barriers, for example. So we can kind of say, what does medication adherence look like? What does emergency visits look like? What does, deterioration in health or missed strokes look like? And then potentially with Damon and even Josephine's intervention, you might think to yourself, well, what if that intervention meant that their outcomes now was similar to the general population? What would that value be? What would the economic value of investing in that particular intervention going forward? So you could still, even if you didn't have a control group, I mean, the control group exists because care closer to home doesn't exist across the nation in a systematic fashion. But there's some thoughts around how you could capture that economic value by saying, how does things like medication adherence, how does engaging with a GP more often than not translate to value to the health system.
I was going to say, if you haven't guessed, Abbas is one of the very rare people in the ecosystem. He's a health economist. And there's not many of them around. Josephine, you had a question?
No, I got a comment and also some reflection about what in New South Wales Health as well. We've been doing in New South Wales Health value-based care, leading better value care, and using the patient reporting portal or measures, using the promises and ED5Q, you name it, depends on what and how, and try to integrate it into a more objective sort of outcome measures from the patient consumer's perspective, and been very popular around with some of the study as well. So I'm finishing a cluster randomized control trial with one of those way that we're actually going to look at some data link, but also looking at patient reported quality and quality of life. So it's another index we can measure as well. So maybe something like reach out to New South Wales Health Agency of Clinical Innovation, because that's how we try to promote measuring from a patient perspective about the outcomes rather than just by volume. It's tricky to do, and they still more centric around Caucasian English-speaking population, so it still haven't gone into the core population. So maybe something that can consider.
Thanks, Joe.
We've got one question from Justin.
Yeah, hi there. My question's back to Lance and or anybody on the panel, really. So there's a plethora of medical support on websites and available through, you know, multi-different websites at the end of the day. Are you seeing any trend or tendency shifting, and especially through this type of forum, to more mobile devices providing that care, because they provide a much more linked association with the individual / patient sufferer? Are you seeing any of that sort of transition happening at the moment, or it's not something that you've really thought about or looked at?
The one place where I have come across interest in it has not come from a group you would typically think of, but I guess very large CROs who have masses of data from the and focusing a lot. They probably, I've come across it maybe in the last 12, 18 months on real life data, you know, that's collected from these sorts of technologies, and what they would like to see, and I guess health systems would like to see as well, as how that data can be incorporated into, you know, data that's collected within, whether it's a standalone or a networked EMR system, to give that more complete picture for patients. But it's only the CROs that I've heard or seen really advocating for that and promoting the value of it, which you know, intuitively you'd understand to be a positive thing. But as a way to consolidate all that, I've not seen anyone trying to do that. And that's probably one of the questions I was thinking about for Josephine, is probably like you, Justin, we've seen lots of people developing different technologies and software platforms for very specific disorders, or general, or GPs, or to try and live with multiple platforms and multiple technologies is just not viable for it to be, you know, economically useful down the track. And whether, you know, governments or anyone is really looking at a way to identify a system to standardize on. I mean, it would be a great win for whoever gets that, and a huge loss for those who don't. But I just don't see how all those multiple platforms can exist and have, you know, a government or a government system take those on.
Yeah, I guess that's, Lance, at the heart of my question, really, because when you're suffering from a condition, as an example, a disease condition, and you're looking for help, and you go to the web, you know, you get 1,000, or you get Google's top 10 effectively, but there's no concise way to then take and manage that disease at a holistic level through something which is personalized and specific. It's a little bit like, you know, what Damon's doing. You know, you sort of take the care back to the user effectively, and you know, there's a great opportunity for user interaction with medical device and providing specific care for a particular disease, but you don't want that to go the same way that, you know, the World Wide Web has gone, where it's now a plethora of, you know, just misinformation and, you know, confusing information at the end of the day. So I was just interested really in that, you know, we're building a platform at the moment to help with one particular disease and help manage it. And it's just interesting to see, you know, how few people are actually out there trying to build specific dedicated disease management applications, which can be more personalized, you know, no different to, you know, what's done with the knee support effectively, where it becomes a personalized piece. You can see the data on your phone, you know, you're getting your own personal input into what's happening. And I'm just a little bit surprised at how far behind that technology is.
And I think another part of that I've thought about, and it sounds like Andrew's technology might have solved it, is, now, if you go back to a pharmaceutical and the doctor prescribes a pharmaceutical and that's recorded and you know exactly how much they get, and if that drug, whether it's an antibiotic, whatever, amiodarone, is measured and that data is in the patient record, when a patient is referred to a digital therapy of some thought, whether it's rehab or whatever else, is that information recorded in the same way in the record as a drug might be? Including its ongoing use and adherence and the response to it. And I'm not sure it is.
No, I don't think it is at this point in time. And I think that the digital care or digital therapeutic care has been talked about for many, many years, but it has been spurred on with COVID in the first instance. But I think that, countries everywhere, governments everywhere are struggling with this problem. And certainly this was a huge topic in the States as well. But I think that there's another, I guess, perspective to this. People might have lots of wearables, and I'm talking about generic wearables, but it doesn't mean that a person that's well with a wearable, like your Apple Watch or a ring or whatever, actually understands what their wearable is trying to tell them. And not everyone will understand the trends that you have to look at. And one number that spiked does not necessarily mean that you are going to flop tomorrow, and so I think there is also another perspective that literacy is really important. Trying to educate people around your health literacy and what you should be looking at. So that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I guess one of my terrifying moments is the health literacy coming through on TikTok and some of the other social platforms is quite terrifying, really.
Yes. Yeah. So you had something to say?
It's a whole nother topic.
Oops, can't hear you.
Well, I was just going to add on that I think I alluded to it, but we've seen a significant improvement in health literacy when people engage with some of that remote technology and they're able to visualize. They can see on the screen their own inner ear. They can see their own throat.
Mm-hmm.
They can feel and hear their heart rate, and that spurs conversations with their kaerehi, their nurse, which is going to be better information than what they'll find in a Google search. So it's kind of curated, and it allows that dialogue to occur. So it's a stimulation for dialogue that raises the literacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, in different contexts, it works slightly differently, right? Thanks, Damon, for that comment. Sue. So we'll go to Sue, Wenlong, and Josephine, and then we should close it as we're kind of nearing our 2 hours. And thank you all for hanging in here. Sue?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an example of what we've been doing with our platform. And we have used a PWA that actually sends the data directly back into our platform. So you're not having lots and lots of different apps that don't put the data into a centralized area. The other thing is it's about explaining why these measurements are important, what they can do to mitigate them if they go outside of it. So it becomes all part of a comprehensive care plan that you deliver in a very concise timeline fashion. And we've found that with what we've been doing with our care plans, that we get very, very high engagement. And you also deburden the clinician from having to respond to that person when they do have an issue, because they already know what to do. Or if they do need to do something, they do it quickly so things don't escalate. We found that's been the greatest success. And the digital literacy depends on the user interface that you use and how easy is it for them to access on any particular device, whether they can use it offline or online. And that's been our experience, and it's been quite successful.
Thanks, Sue. Good to hear that.
Wenlong?
Yeah, because I just have some comments in this group, because I'm more kind of from the more kind of next generation disruptive wearable solution, which need to be soft and thin and integratable, offer the solution anytime, anywhere. I think this exactly as Susan mentioned, a lot of different wearable, but different platform, but those wearable, either step and gyroscope and accelerometer, they try to measure people, but each people is different. And this heart rate, it could be helpful for person X, but maybe that's not suitable for person Y. So therefore, I think what sort of the way to educate customer, I feel the existing wearable doesn't really deliver a breakthrough value for people see and uptake the technology. That's something I feel still that's a significant technology challenge to really make a difference. What's the genuine wearable is? What's the general medical value it offers? If we have that killer capabilities, makes it much easier to educate people and to use it. Maybe some comments for this group, and we can talk about and work together at some stage.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Wenlong.
Can I give my
Oh, yeah.
comment?
Yeah,
Right?
Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So from I don't work for the company. I just keep it really brief as well. So it's really important that from us in the clinical area, we be able to integrate not just one single device or technology, so we can actually integrate a number of them safely. And in fact, that's what I've been focused for the past year with research and all the innovation. The other thing is, I think the government actually acknowledging that is a device that come in all the time, technology come in, but how we safely introduce them and measure the quality and outcome, and safely to keep patients in that component of model of care. And that's what they're acknowledging, that even the NHMRC, which is a funding body for research in Australia, they have a target call, urgent call, and closed already 2 months ago, and is actually in the middle of reviewing that funding, is really looking at safety and quality introduction of technology for telehealth. So I think that's the area that will be good to look at as well. Yes, my group definitely put an application in for that. But so I think that's the area that need to be actually pays more of attention about how can we introduce, how can we work collaboratively together, and then make sure that everything's safe and fine. And knowing that is a lot of social media out there that can be damaging the whole initiative as well.
I think that I was just going to say, Josephine, we need to connect you to Robin Whittaker and John Harris in the New Zealand health system, because they are working exactly on this. And in fact, Eileen is still online, and she'd be a good connection too.
Thanks.
So I was going to say we've got 4 minutes left, and so we will give you back 4 minutes of your life. But thank you so much for being part of this workshop, and thank you very much to our speakers, Josephine, Wenlong, Damon, and Andrew, for sharing your insights. So
thanks from here too, and anyone interested in being connected to anybody, just drop us a line and we'll sort that out for you. And Wenlong and Joe, I'll get back to you with some particular connections which we'll make for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you.